I'm going to tell you something straight, without sugarcoating, without filters, and without the soft little gloves the media likes to wear when they talk about Washington, D.C. Because what happened in that city, what happened to those National Guard members, is not some small incident you brush off like dust on your jacket. It was an attack that shook the ground, and the fact that it happened right under the nose of the people who claim to protect this country should make every American furious. And yes, Trump calling it an act of terror isn't just a political line. It's a reaction born out of a boiling frustration, a frustration millions feel, but only a few dare to voice in the open. Imagine this: soldiers who signed up to defend the country, men who leave their families behind, put their lives on the line, and stand guard so ordinary people can live their normal lives, are ambushed in the capital of the United States. The capital that's supposed to be the safest, most controlled, most secure place in the nation. And they get shot in broad daylight on American soil. This isn't just violence. This is humiliation. This is a slap in the face of national security. And the worst part, everyone in power acts shocked, like they couldn't see this coming. People have been screaming for years about rising violence, about crime spiraling out of control, about the government turning a blind eye while communities suffer. But every time someone dares to raise their voice, they get labeled as fear-mongering. Well, guess what? The fear became reality. The warnings were ignored. And now the consequences are hitting home, literally. So when Trump steps up and calls it an act of terror, you better believe millions of people agree with him. Not because they love his personality, not because of politics, but because they're tired of leaders walking around pretending everything is fine while the country is choking under chaos. People don't want calm words. They don't want soft political statements. They want anger. They want fire. They want someone who reacts like a human being, not a robot reading off a scripted message. And then there's the part that the media immediately seizes on: immigration. Trump says there will be new scrutiny, new checks, new levels of protection. And instantly, the commentators explode. They act like he declared war on the entire immigrant population. They twist it, stretch it, weaponize it for political points. But let's be brutally honest here. When an attack happens, when a soldier dies, when another one gets carried away bleeding, people start asking questions. People want answers. People want to know how the hell something like this was allowed to happen. And if immigration is part of that conversation, then so be it. You can't silence an entire topic just because it makes some people uncomfortable. This is not about blaming immigrants. It's about the failure of leadership. It's about the cracks in the system. It's about the policies that are either too weak, too slow, or too politically correct to protect the people who serve this nation. And every time a tragedy happens, politicians jump up with their thoughts and prayers, then sink back into their chairs like nothing happened. But this time, people aren't buying it. This time, the anger is boiling over. Because let's face it, America is tired. Tired of crime. Tired of excuses. Tired of hearing "we're still investigating" while families bury their sons. Tired of the media trying to frame every violent act as some random, isolated, unpredictable event. How many isolated events does it take before leaders realize the whole system is failing? And this shooting, this attack, hit a nerve, a deep one. And Trump reacted the way millions of people felt, with anger, with fury, with the kind of emotion people want from leaders who actually seem awake, who actually seem to care, who actually understand that this isn't normal. This isn't acceptable. He called it terror because that's what it felt like. A sudden, targeted attack on the people who protect the country. And he didn't stop there. He talked about immigrants because he believes the system is broken. Whether someone agrees or not, at least the man didn't hide behind empty phrases. At least he didn't pretend everything was sunshine and rainbows. What's truly disturbing is how predictable this moment was. You could feel the tension building in America for years. Violence rising, law enforcement stretched thin, communities begging for help. But Washington kept throwing around political slogans instead of doing something. They'd rather protect their image than protect their citizens. People don't want PR. They want security. They want strength. They want leaders who understand that weakness only invites more chaos. When a National Guard soldier gets shot, that's not an incident. That's a declaration. It's a message that even the defenders of the nation, even the trained, uniformed, prepared individuals, are not safe. And if they're not safe, what chance does an ordinary American have? That's the question people are screaming in their minds, even if they're afraid to speak it out loud. Trump isn't afraid to say it. That's why his reaction hit like a shockwave. He took the anger of a nation and exploded it into words. And whether people like him or despise him, they can't deny the impact. They can't deny the reality. They can't deny the frustration bursting from every corner of the country. And the truth is, Americans are done being polite about it. They're done pretending that everything is fine. They're done being told to calm down while the streets burn. They're done being told to stay peaceful while criminals roam freely. They're done being shut down when they demand answers. This shooting wasn't a spark. It was gasoline thrown on an already burning fire. People want justice. They want consequences. They want a government that protects them, not one that downplays tragedies. They want leadership that faces the truth, not leadership scared of offending anyone. And that's why this moment is exploding in the national conversation, because it represents everything Americans are furious about: the violence, the insecurity, the political games, the lack of accountability, the weakness of leadership. And if leaders don't get a grip, if they keep brushing it off, this frustration is only going to grow. And let me tell you something else. What makes people even angrier is how predictable the government's reaction is. You can almost script it before it happens. First, they release a half-baked statement saying they're monitoring the situation. Then they pretend like they're deeply shocked, as if the Capitol hasn't been drowning in crime for years. After that, they send some spokesperson to the podium to ramble about not jumping to conclusions. Meanwhile, a soldier is lying in a hospital bed fighting for his life. Another soldier is already gone forever. But sure, let's take our time so no one's feelings get hurt. It's pathetic, and Americans are tired of pathetic leadership. They want leaders who react like real humans. Leaders who step up and say, "Enough. We are done tolerating this." Leaders who don't care about political optics or approval ratings when American lives are at stake. And whether people like Trump or not, his reaction was the closest thing we've seen to genuine emotion in Washington in a long time. He didn't bury the anger. He used it. He expressed what millions are feeling, but are too exhausted or too silenced to say out loud. But the part that really sets the country on fire isn't just the tragedy. It's the bigger truth that this shooting exposed, that the U.S. is losing its grip on security, losing its grip on accountability, losing its grip on control. And that scares people. It terrifies them. But instead of admitting it, the government pushes narratives, excuses, distractions, anything to avoid confronting reality. And then there's Washington, D.C., the so-called heart of democracy, now turning into a crime-infested zone where even trained military members can be ambushed. How can Americans trust leaders who can't even secure the Capitol? How can they trust a government that can't protect its own? And yes, people know that violence happens everywhere. But when it happens in the Capitol to soldiers in broad daylight, the message is louder than ever. The system is broken. People don't want the truth sugar-coated. They don't want comforting little lies. They want the cold, brutal reality served straight, because only then can something actually change. And the reality is that crime has exploded, the justice system is overrun, and political leaders still act like this is some mystery they can't figure out. It's not a mystery. It's incompetence. It's weakness. It's a refusal to admit that their strategies aren't working. And when Trump vows to scrutinize immigrants more aggressively, people snap to attention, not because it's a comfortable topic, but because it's honest. It's raw. It's addressing the issues leaders avoid because they're scared of backlash. Whether someone agrees with his stance or not, the truth is that Americans respect someone who actually reacts to danger instead of hiding behind committees and investigations. The media will say he's fear-mongering. Politicians will say he's being divisive. But do you know who doesn't care about those labels? The people who walk the streets fearing for their safety. The families who lost someone to violence. The soldiers who now know that even their uniform isn't enough to protect them. Those people aren't looking for comforting words. They're looking for real action. And then comes the anger that politicians keep making excuses, keep turning everything into a political chess match. Anger that Americans are being treated like children who can't handle the truth. Anger that leaders will protect their image faster than they protect their citizens. This anger is justified. This anger has been earned. It didn't come out of nowhere. It's been building up year after year, tragedy after tragedy, failure after failure, until this shooting became the breaking point. Because how many more times do leaders expect people to swallow the lie that things are under control? They are not under control. They are spiraling, and the people in power act like acknowledging that is too dangerous. But ignoring it is what's dangerous. Denial is what's deadly. And let's not pretend this is just a Washington problem. People across the country have been dealing with fear, violence, rising crime, and chaos. They've been demanding stronger protections, tougher laws, better policing. And instead, what do they get? Political speeches, empty promises, endless delays. Leaders sitting in offices far removed from the realities ordinary citizens face. But the moment a soldier gets shot, suddenly everyone acts like crime is a new discovery. Suddenly the outrage becomes convenient. Suddenly politicians find the courage to speak because now it's on camera, now it's public, now they can't ignore it without risking backlash. It's hypocritical, and people are sick of hypocrisy. That's why Trump's reaction hit differently. He didn't pretend this was an isolated incident. He didn't hide behind, "let's wait and see." He called it what it felt like, terror. And he demanded tougher scrutiny, something people have been begging for. Whether his solution is right or wrong is a debate. But at least he reacted like a leader who actually feels the weight of what happened. People may disagree with him. People may criticize his tone. People may question his political motives. But no one can deny that his reaction matched the intensity of the moment, something other leaders almost never do. Americans want someone who treats attacks on soldiers like the emergency they are. They want someone who understands that national security isn't a talking point. It's life or death. They want someone who speaks with urgency, not detachment, with force, not weakness. Because this country is angry, and it has every reason to be. Angry that soldiers are bleeding in the Capitol. Angry that crime is out of control. Angry that leaders are more focused on optics than solutions. Angry that every tragedy is treated like a political opportunity instead of a national failure that needs to be fixed immediately. And that anger is exploding across the country, in conversations, in communities, in the national dialogue. People are done staying quiet, done being patient, done waiting for politicians to grow a spine. They want justice. They want accountability. They want real protection. Because if a country cannot protect its own soldiers on its own soil, then what does that say about its priorities? This shooting wasn't just a crime. It was a wake-up call, a loud, violent reminder that America's security is cracking. And the more leaders ignore it, the angrier the nation becomes. And that anger, that fire, that boiling frustration isn't going away anytime soon. And here's what really fuels the rage across the country. People know this won't be the last time. They know the cycle by heart now. A tragedy happens, the nation cries out, leaders pretend to care, cameras roll, promises are made, then everything fades into silence until the next disaster hits. It's like watching a loop of failure playing over and over, and the people who are supposed to be in control act like spectators instead of leaders. But Americans aren't spectators. They're the ones who feel the consequences. They're the ones who pay the price. They're the ones raising families in neighborhoods where they can't even let their kids play outside. Meanwhile, the same politicians who downplay crime go home to protected communities, gated properties, private security, and taxpayer-funded safety. So when they try to lecture people about context or not rushing to judgment, it feels insulting. It feels disrespectful. It feels like they're gaslighting the entire country because the people living through the chaos don't need context. They don't need lectures. They need safety. And that's where the fury comes in, because this shooting wasn't random. It was a symptom, a sign, a reflection of a system collapsing and leaders pretending they don't hear the sound of its collapse. And instead of focusing on fixing the problems, they focus on controlling the public reaction. That's why Trump's statement sent shockwaves. Not because it was unexpected, but because it said what millions are thinking, that America is under attack from within. And anyone pretending otherwise is delusional or dishonest. He didn't water it down. He didn't cushion it with gentle language. He hit directly where the wound is, and whether people agree or disagree with him, they felt the impact. But beyond the politics, beyond the speeches, there's a deeper anger boiling, an anger rooted in betrayal. People feel betrayed by their own government, betrayed by leaders who promised protection but delivered chaos. Betrayed by a justice system that releases criminals faster than police can arrest them. Betrayed by the way tragedy after tragedy is brushed aside like ordinary news. And when that betrayal is combined with fear, real fear, the result is explosive. People don't just want answers, they demand them. They don't just want explanations. They want responsibility. They want consequences for failure. They want leaders to stop hiding behind excuses. But every time something goes wrong, the first instinct of those in power is to shift blame, cover tracks, protect their image. They're more worried about headlines than human lives, and Americans see through it now. The mask is off, the game is exposed. And then you have the media spinning stories in real time, shaping narratives before facts are even known. They shift the focus away from the root issue, diluting the severity, distracting the public, softening the impact. And people are tired of it. Tired of being told what to think, tired of being manipulated, tired of seeing reality distorted to fit political agendas. Because the reality is brutal. A soldier died, another nearly died, and it happened in the capital of the United States. That alone should have shaken the entire government to their core. That alone should have triggered immediate action, immediate reform, immediate outrage. Instead, politicians talk like they're reading from the same script they've used 100 times before, dull, emotionless, disconnected from the pain people are actually feeling. But the people aren't disconnected. The people feel every hit, every shock, every failure. And that's why Trump's reaction resonated, whether people admit it or not. That raw fire in his words, that refusal to tiptoe around reality, that willingness to say what others won't, that's the kind of response people expect during national crises. Because when the country is hurting, they don't want polished speeches. They want someone who reflects the intensity of the moment. And now things are reaching a boiling point. The shooting wasn't just a tragedy, it was a spark thrown into a nation already drenched in frustration. People are reaching a limit. They're tired of being told to stay calm while danger keeps getting closer. They're tired of being blamed for demanding safety. They're tired of being demonized for wanting strong policies, strong borders, strong protection. And the truth is, no matter what political side someone is on, everyone feels the same core emotion: anger. Anger that their country feels unstable. Anger that criminals seem more protected than citizens. Anger that the people in charge act like everything is under control when clearly it's not. And this anger won't disappear quietly. It's not the kind you sleep off. It's the kind that sticks, grows, and intensifies. The kind that pushes people to demand radical change. The kind that reshapes political landscapes. The kind that turns ordinary citizens into vocal, unstoppable forces. Because this wasn't just a shooting, it was a symbol of vulnerability, a symbol of leadership failure, a symbol of a country being pushed to its breaking point. And Americans know it. The government knows it. And the world is watching. But what happens next depends on whether leaders finally listen or continue pretending everything is fine. And if they choose to ignore it again, the anger of the American people will grow louder than ever before. And here's the part nobody in Washington wants to admit. The people aren't just angry at criminals anymore. They're angry at the government. They're angry at the system. They're angry at the leaders who keep acting surprised every time something like this happens. Like they're living in some alternate universe where everything is peaceful and crime is just a rumor. People are waking up. People are realizing that the ones responsible for protecting them have failed over and over again, and now the consequences are coming straight to the front door of the nation's capital. What makes this moment even more explosive is how predictable it all was. The signs were everywhere: rising crime, weak policies, chaotic streets, emboldened criminals. People were warning, shouting, begging for something to change. But instead of action, they got lectures. They got political speeches. They got treated like children who don't understand the complexities. Well, the complexities don't matter when a soldier is lying dead in the Capitol. The only thing that matters is that something is broken, and the people in charge allowed it to break. And now everyone acts shocked because Trump spoke with force. Because he didn't tiptoe around the truth. Because he didn't dress it up in fancy language. He reacted like someone who actually felt the weight of what happened. And the establishment hates that. They hate when someone doesn't follow their script. They hate when someone says what ordinary people are already thinking, but are too frustrated or too disillusioned to say out loud. The truth is, people are tired of being calm, tired of pretending everything is okay, tired of being told they're overreacting when they watch the country falling apart piece by piece. People are angry because they've been patient for too long, trusting leaders who never earn that trust. And now the patience is gone, replaced by a boiling frustration that grows each time another tragedy hits the headlines. And let's talk about those headlines, how the media twists everything into political theater. Before investigators even finish their work, commentators are already shaping the narrative, deciding who's right and who's wrong, who's the villain and who's the hero. They're more focused on controlling the story than understanding the truth, and people know it. They see it. They're done being manipulated by polished news anchors who live in safe bubbles while ordinary Americans live with fear. But the real fear isn't just the violence itself. It's the realization that the people in charge don't seem capable of stopping it. That every time something horrifying happens, the responses get weaker, softer, colder. Leaders talk like they're reading from cue cards, emotionless, rehearsed, detached from reality. Meanwhile, people want leaders who feel what they feel. Leaders who react with fire, not formality. Leaders who understand that a soldier being killed in the Capitol is not just a statistic, it's a national failure. And that failure burns. It fuels the rage. It adds weight to every word Trump said, because his reaction wasn't polished. It wasn't sanitized. It wasn't safe. It was raw. It was emotional. It was urgent. It was human. And that's why millions connected with it. Not because they worship him, not because they agree with every policy, but because they're starving for someone who responds to danger with the seriousness it deserves. People don't want gentle sentiments. They want truth. They want strength. They want someone who isn't afraid to say, "This is unacceptable, and it ends now." But instead, they get weak replies, half-hearted promises, and endless political calculations. And the more people see this weakness, the angrier they become. Because Americans don't want excuses, they want results. They want safety. They want leaders who are willing to make tough decisions, even if those decisions upset the politically correct crowd. They want someone who refuses to let criminals walk free while citizens live in fear. But what they see instead is a government terrified of offending anyone, a system where protecting feelings is more important than protecting lives, a political class that's more concerned about elections than national security. And this shooting pulled the curtain back completely. It showed the cracks, the failures, the consequences. And now people can't unsee it. They can't pretend anymore. They can't swallow the lie that everything is under control. Not when a soldier dies in the Capitol. Not when another lies wounded. Not when tragedy becomes normal and leaders still act like this is just an unfortunate event that will blow over in a week. It won't blow over. It's not going away. Because the anger isn't going away. It's spreading, growing, intensifying. Because Americans are tired of being the ones who suffer while leaders hide behind podiums. Tired of watching tragedies become headlines. Tired of being told to wait while nothing changes. Tired of bleeding while politicians argue. Tired of being ignored until election season. This moment feels like a breaking point. The country is reaching a limit. People aren't just angry anymore, they're fed up. They're done with denial. Done with weakness. Done with empty words. And unless leaders start facing reality with the same force Trump showed, the anger of the people is going to keep rising until it becomes impossible to contain. Because America is tired. And when a tired nation gets angry, everything changes.